Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. I'm Kevin Willis, and before we get started with today's episode, I get to tell you about our friends over at Streetside Brewery. That's right, they're back in 2025, and they're doing better than ever. Streetside is an amazing local Cincinnati brewery here on the east side of Cincinnati, located in the Columbia Tusculum neighborhood. They have an awesome brewery, a great place to grab a drink, grab a bite to eat. They also distribute all over the Cincinnati area, so you can definitely find them wherever you are picking up beer. But my favorite thing about Streetside are the events going on at Streetside. Go check them out. I know a bunch of people were there for the Philadelphia game. As we hear later in this episode, it was a packed house. Love to hear that. This week and next week, you have Pint Night on March 4th and March 11th from 6 to 9 p.m. Pint Night are great. They have a special limited edition glassware. They get you a beer with that glassware. It's $10 off, $1 off of refills with that. It's an awesome time to go out. I also have got to tell you, on March 8th, it is Lepra Con. That is right. It's a pre-Patty's Day pub crawl through Cincinnati's oldest neighborhoods. They start at 11 a.m. in Streetside. There's a ton of cool stuff going on there. They've got all the classic green beer, Jello shots, Jameson, Guinness, Irish coffee, all of that and more. Hey, there's a home game on March 8th. Why not get it started off right at 11 a.m. over there at Streetside? And thank you, Streetside, for sponsoring this episode of the Postcast. And on today's episode, well, okay, we're talking about the season's first loss. So be it, okay? They probably weren't going to go undefeated the entire season, but 4-1, that's a lot to take, given where we stood vibes-wise going into this game. This is a classic whodunnit, as I think. We try to figure out who is to blame, what is to blame for this result, for the team looking pretty flat against Philadelphia. We dive into the list of suspects here. In part two, though, we are looking ahead to Tigres in CONCACAF Champions League on Tuesday. This is a huge game for FC Cincinnati. This is a huge game for the outlook of the season. There's a lot riding on this one. Has the team learned their lesson from Philadelphia? Have they learned what they need to take the next step now the season is finally underway? We dive into all of that and more on a bounce back episode of the Postcast. Joining me to talk about all of that and more, I'm joined by two gentlemen who are ready to overreact to the first loss of the season. Joined by the Chief, joined by Grayson. Chief, if you had to power a small wooden boat, would you choose wind power by chance? Just curious.
Below Deck Sailing Yacht is clearly the inferior of the two boat shows. I'll throw that out there for those who bravo. If I could hear less about wind, I'd be a happier man today.
I was very proud of myself for looking at the analytics of the Discord in the Match Day channel, which has been around for like 2-3 years now, right? We had used the word something like wind, something like 170 times, 162 times Saturday night.
There we go.
Well done, everybody.
Yeah, it's all we are is dust in the wind. I think somebody famous said that one time. And
yeah, I think it was somewhere. Sartre.
Yeah. One of those fellers.
I think if Sartre said, we're dust in the wind, and then he said, that's why you need to live your life like a candle in the wind. And the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. I believe that's in No Exit.
I legit thought he was a Vulcan or a character from a TV show or something like that. That's fun. We're going to talk about excuses. I feel like there's going to be a lot of excuse making on this podcast, I feel. And of the excuses being made in real time, I don't know what it was, but wind just it hit me in the wrong spot of the evening last night.
Grayson, where did you watch this game? The away game, it's always a fun one to take in a weird manner. Where did you watch this one?
I watched it at Postcast sponsor, Streetside Brewery.
Yes. Was it a good turnout? I had unfortunately. It was full?
It was full. I was impressed. And I was thinking on my way over, I was like, oh, well, Xavier and UC are letting out.
Mm-hmm.
I bet there's going to be some group from that, and then it's going to kind of thin out. But no, it was a crowd that, as far as I could tell, every single one of them was there for the game and was engaged.
Well, you guys got lucky then, because from what I heard, MLS and DirecTV had a little bit of an oopsie this weekend when it came to being able to see the match.
We missed the first 3 minutes.
Oh, damn!
But
I was over at Element Eatery, and they had the game up on like 50 screens over there, and not a hitch. The only problem was no sound. That was no bueno. But otherwise, it was a good setup over there.
We had no sound for ours either. But like this game, what am I trying to hear? I'd much rather hear, the 4 Chapel Roan songs.
Yeah. I love that we just have like the same announcers now. Lori Lindsay and Whittingham, just like every game. That's fine. That's who we're assigned now.
Yeah, step into that booth down in Florida, and it's just like they're there. It's unbelievable. The magic of television. They have visited Cincinnati in spirit so many times.
It is very strategic that they didn't for the first 2 years ever show the booth, right? Like that's an iconic shot in a sports broadcast, is at least a couple of cutaways to the literal booth. They never did it, did they? It's really funny. They knew.
It's kind of like in pro wrestling when Vince McMahon was like, we're never going to mention the names of the referees in the matches. It's like, you're just part of the furniture, man. We want you to be replaceable. We don't want to pay you. We don't want fans to form an attachment to who the announcer is. We just want you tuning in for the product. We don't want to make stars out of anyone that's doing this for a living.
Damn. And now they're in the WWE studio, so they may be learning even more lessons like this.
Like the rest of us, crying at the actions of one John Cena.
Finally got his heel moment, huh?
Got his heel turn. My childhood has been betrayed and reaffirmed.
The Rock was a heel, correct?
Yes.
Originally, yeah, as a character. Okay.
No, he was originally a face.
Okay.
When he was coming up as the blue blood, Rocky Maivia, son of High Chief Peter Maivia, and the crowd utterly rejected him for being forced upon them and started chanting like "Die Rocky, die."
Good.
And then when he sort of got rebranded a little bit, he came back with the Nation of Domination.
That's right.
And then coined the Rock persona and became a heel from that point forward.
Gotcha.
Until he became the People's Champ. And then face, but then defected to the corporation and became the corporate Rock, the corporate champion instead of the people's champion. You know what? There's been a lot of back and forth in the Rock's career.
It is so funny because like these days, his movie persona almost feels like it's illegal to make him the villain, or if he's the villain, he has to be like somehow the lovable anti-hero. Like,
I think he's not allowed to lose a fight, right?
Oh yeah,
isn't that part of his contract?
Probably
in the movies. Yeah, probably. I would assume. But I mean, who's going to beat The Rock? I mean, he's enormous on every substance known to mankind. He's not losing a fight. He's as close as we have to the actual Captain America super soldier in real life.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. If they ever reboot the MCU, there's your Captain America.
The reality of the situation, though, is heel Rock is exponentially better than good guy face Rock, because he is one of the funniest living people in a wrestling ring with a microphone. Just his ability off the cuff to be funny is unparalleled. And when you can be mean and funny at the same time, it's so much better. Like, he came back last year and they were going to have him as a face, but they sort of got pushed into having him be a heel due to like the crowd dynamics with Cody Rhodes. And the first time he came out as a heel, he looked someone in the middle of a promo. He looked someone dead in the eye in the crowd and told to shut up, fatty, before The Rock comes out there and smacks the taste out your mouth. And I was like, I missed this so much. Like, in an instant, I was transported back to being, in high school in the 90s. And it was the coolest moment ever. I didn't realize how much I missed The Rock being mean to people.
The showmanship, you realize, oh, right, that's where he got it. Like, people saw that and were like, he's got something.
Every so often, this is sort of like, how often do you think of the Roman Empire? Every so often, I need to go back and I will find myself watching old YouTube highlights of Rock cutting promos from back in the 90s.
Does the WWE have like a back catalog option with whatever streaming platform they're with? Okay.
Most definitely.
Okay.
It used to be, I don't know, I haven't watched in a while. It used to be you could just go and just start with the first Monday Night Raw they ever did and just watch them in chronological order.
I would love to meet the person who was just like, I had to catch up.
I had 30 years of back catalog programming to do. And you know what? You realize when you go back, they were filling a lot of time and your brain has blocked out. Like, for every moment you remember of The Rock and Mankind doing electric content, there was like a 10-minute, Gangrel versus Viscera match that you just want to erase from your brain. Is like, why did I have to sit there and watch this?
It's up there with like the best of SNL DVDs that everybody would rent from Blockbuster and then be like, oh man, those were the best SNL casts. It's like, yeah, they cut 90% of what they put out. And
the jokes DVD. That didn't hit. Yeah, we're not watching those. Going back and playing a video game from your childhood, and it's like, wait, I have to spend how many hours grinding levels to beat the boss? No.
This was before saving was a thing.
One hit and I die. This is nonsense.
Grayson, I think our objective tonight, not to bring this back to soccer, but
sorry, I passed out. Are we doing the Tigres preview yet?
No, I have an idea.
We can talk more pro wrestling for the rest of the show too. I'm okay with that.
We might. No, I kind of want to view the loss on Saturday as like a whodunnit. And I've got a couple of narratives to offer up as like how this team lost. So I'm going to run through some of the suspects here, and then we can discuss those suspects, or we can throw out new suspects if I don't capture them here.
So we're pivoting from pro wrestling talk to an episode of Dr. Cop, Attorney at Law.
Dr. Cop, Attorney at Law. We're running through our list of potential suspects. We've got the guy at the scene of the crime, the guy with the really bad alibi. We got it all. Okay, so here it is. The first one.
Speaking of Dr. Cop,
please.
I asked. I was messing around with Copilot yesterday.
Yes,
and the Microsoft AI, if people don't know, and I asked it to do an outline for the pilot of Dr. Cop, Attorney at Law, just to see what it would spit out. And what it spit out is, I'm not going to use it.
Okay, fair.
Okay, but it did have one interesting idea where the way that at least the outline was describing it was that it sounded like a person with multiple personalities. Because it would like alternatingly call her like Doctor. Well, the name it gave her was I think it was like Amy Mason.
It's a good name.
Great name.
Strong.
Great name.
I've got a different one, but it would like just alternate between calling her like Dr. Mason and Attorney Mason. And it did refer to them as like alter egos. And like, I don't think that's the direction we're going, but I do like.
I like the spin.
Right. I like that they're thinking.
Yeah.
You could have multiple
AI.
personalities, but then like the not in one of the fields version of Dr. Cop, she is aware that the other ones exist. The other ones are not aware of each other, but like she knows that she has a cop persona, an attorney persona, a doctor persona. I think that would be fun. So like it's kind of like the Hulk. Like she can't command it on command, but like she knows like if I walk into this medical examination room, doctor is taken over.
And there's some type of like severance block between like the three.
Yes.
So like that allows her to both like be like a medical expert witness and an attorney in the same case.
Yes.
Because those two personalities can't interact with each other.
Or it's not so much a severance block, but there's some sort of a trope in the show where like she blinks really hard and all of a sudden like the perspective shifts and she's into a different part of her existence. Or a different part of her being. And like it would be something where like the color palette in the episode changes subtly depending on which persona she's occupying right there. Or which, and it's like she's aware of her other personas, but like she needs to do something to enter into that state where it's like, okay, I'm thinking medically right now. Like it's a snap or a blink or something like that. And
well, what about instead of a blink real hard, it's like the little bewitched nose wiggle?
I'm okay with that.
Then we are trending very close to superpower.
I mean, in many ways, that is kind of a superpower, being all three of those at the same time.
It's kind of a Legion thing. But
yeah.
All right, Kevin, who are the suspects?
Okay, here are my suspects for whodunnit on Saturday night. The first suspect is the good old fashioned. It's early in the season, man. Team hasn't gelled. They haven't had they did not have a good preseason. We're trying to bed in a lot of new pieces. Angle, Denke, Evander, and this came Anunga, Flores. Hadebe and Robinson didn't play a whole lot together last year, whereas a lot of this Philly team has been around the Philly team and their style of...
Except for the biggest part, and that's that they've got a brand new coach and a brand new system this year.
Agreed. The system, I think, is a variation on a theme, but
didn't Noonan say that he thought they were going to show a different thing than they showed in the past, but they actually didn't?
Yes.
At his press conference. So it doesn't really seem like it's a brand new system, but okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So that's one idea. It's just like, hey, team's still gelling. You're gonna have some weirdness in the first game.
All right. So do we want to talk about them as we go and then go to the next one, or do you want to list them all out on the front?
I was gonna just list out a couple of them. Yeah.
Right.
So the other one is we're tired, man. That's 4 games in 2 weeks. Philly's only played 1 game going into this one, the second game in 2 weeks. They've got fresher legs. Again, that pressing system early in the season. They've got more energy. We've been traveling to Honduras, traveling from Florida to Honduras back to Cincinnati. They haven't had to deal with any of that. Something to consider there. The other one that I have for you is a little different. In the first 3 years of Pat Noonan being in charge, this team, despite being very talented, despite being very good, having successful seasons, always starts off a little weird. 2022, this team started off with 2 losses, including the infamous 5-0 loss to Austin. They actually lost 4 of their first 6 games in 2022. 2023, yep, they beat Houston Dynamo 2-1. They then drew Orlando City, beat Seattle Sounders at home, drew the Chicago Fire 3-3. What the heck? They barely beat Nashville 1-0. Those are wins. Do not get me wrong. Puzzling for, again, that Shield team that did really well. 2024, this team, again, only won 2 of the first 4 games, including bizarro draws to Toronto and DC United, who would go on to be the 2 worst teams in the league, beat New England Revolution 2-1. Very weird start to the season last year as well. The theory here, Pat Noonan teams just get off to a slow start, baby. My last one for you, and this is the scary one. Pat Noonan got straight up out-coached. That this is a team that was not prepared for what Philly was going to do, as we briefly touched on there, and that Noonan was unable to make adjustments, or perhaps the weather played a role, but adjustments were not made with regards to the weather once it was identified as an issue. So these are my suspects for whodunit.
I will add one more in terms of whodunit.
Yes.
That this team...
Miles Robinson.
Suspect on goal number 1, to be clear.
Final suspect is that this team desperately misses the skills and the talents and the abilities of one Matt Miazga and one Luca Orishano, and that they are playing down two of, I would say at this point, two of their top 4 players on this roster are not available for selection right now.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. Like, they shouldn't need to have Matt Miazga, given the other personnel, to be competent and organized on defense. I mean, they're always going to be better with Matt Miazga, but we've seen them. We've got a decent sample size.
Yeah, sadly,
of this iteration of the team, because you could throw away the first 3 years. We've got a pretty good sample size of this iteration of the team, meaning Albright personnel, Pat Noonan and friends coached without Miazga on the field. And it's a lot. It's more similar to last night a lot of the time than not. I mean, you look at games last year against New York Red Bull. You look at that Philly game in Leagues Cup last year. You look at that the way they lost to Miami last year, Charlotte last year, NYCFC at NYCFC in the playoffs.
Yeah.
A lot of I don't want to take away from what Philly did, because they executed, and they played fast and smart on their goals, but none of those happen if the defense isn't leaving itself exposed to very simple attacks. The third goal, for example, Miles gets drawn out.
Yeah.
I don't know why Miles has to come out there and one of the midfielders isn't playing it, but he gets drawn out on, I think it was Ura.
Yeah.
And leaves Baribo totally free.
Total free run.
Totally free. And there's nobody. So he leaves him. Nobody steps in or picks up that guy.
He'd already scored 2 goals at this point.
He already scored 2 goals. And, I think that there's just a lot of that, guys getting pulled out and there being nobody covering the space that they left behind. And I don't know if that's because the midfield's not doing their job or other people aren't doing their job. So Miles feels like he has to come out, or it's Miles is coming out and nobody is registering that they need to then. Or maybe, and I don't think this is the answer, the game plan is for when Miles gets pulled out to just leave that striker wide open on side.
I'm going to hope that's not the plan.
And I don't necessarily want to pick on that goal, but you could point to things about all of the goals.
Yeah.
Where it's they leave space for a dangerous player to exploit them. They have a high line, but they don't keep the guy offside, and he's able to time a run or get space where nobody can cover him, get behind. Even in the second goal, Anunga makes that touch. Miles looks like he's running to where the ball is going to go.
Yeah.
And then Anunga touches the ball, and the space that Miles just vacated is where the ball goes.
Right.
And I don't know if it's if you need to have like more awareness to communicate and say, don't touch that ball, it's coming to me? Or don't try to be too quick in anticipating where you think the ball is going when there's a attacker that if the ball goes to where you were, he's now open.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And it's just, I don't know where the miscommunications are happening, but it just doesn't seem like the type of thing when Matt Miazga is in the middle of the defense.
Yeah. You can definitely point to the individual moments of those goals. In the first goal, Robinson just totally misses his man. He's a half step behind him as the run comes in.
Yedlin is getting run around too, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and then the guy on the wing gets the ball. Yedlin's back is to him.
Yeah. His back is to him. The guy, so he ends up making, I think it's Wagner makes the cross, right? I thought it was Gazdag. Okay, so Gazdag makes the cross. The cross is incredible, by the way. Full credit there. It's like this perfectly spun, curving cross that completely cuts around Robinson and hits Uribe in stride, which was great. But yeah, there's Robinson is a half step behind. Yedlin has his back to the ball, and then there's somebody just on the other side of Robinson, or on the other side of Yedlin.
Yeah, Flores is doing nothing.
Yeah, well, the Philly attacker is also running in behind Yedlin as well, pointing for the ball, who also would have had an amazing opportunity.
But Flores is like behind that attacker. Like he's out of the play.
Yes. Flores is behind, and both of our defensive midfielders are essentially just standing still in the middle of the field.
So like, let's say Miles gets his foot on that cross coming in. That other Philly attacker is the most likely person to end up with the ball.
It's bouncing right in front of an attacker who has probably a wide open net to shoot at.
Which I think there were like 2 or 3 other times in the game.
Yeah.
Where Miles essentially, he got a touch in the box, essentially placed it right in front of right to a Philly attacker who had space at the top of the box.
And that's the thing that sort of kills me going back and watching this game, is that like every touch was bad. Like every touch is bad. They get beat to every 50-50 ball. They'll work their ass off to win the ball back and do some, incredible tackle to knock the ball away, and it just dribbles right into the foot of another Philly player.
It's lack of hustle, and it's lack of care and skill with the ball. And it was like that. They were careless passing when they would work so damn hard to retain possession, and then they would make a bad pass or a pass to the wrong side of someone or to the wrong foot of someone, and they would immediately be closed down by a Philly defender because they couldn't move in space. The other thing too is that, like, I don't know what's going on early this year or even going back to last year, but when was the last time an FC Cincinnati attacker had that much space that Philly was getting in the box, in the 18-yard box? It feels like every time we cross a ball or play a ball into the 18, there's 4 defenders in there parked. Like, we never, it's also say never. It has been so long since we've had someone making a run on goal where they're 1v1 or they're one touch into the net, or they're not outnumbered numerically in the box on an attack. And it's just, it feels like they work so hard to generate scoring opportunities on their end, and then on defense, let simple things go wrong, get way too far out, and then just get picked apart when it's number v number. Like, they never have more, like, it's rare that they ever have more defenders in the box than attackers on these plays where they're getting beaten on. And like Grayson was saying, you've got midfielders standing around, taking themselves out of an attack because they're 25 yards away from goal as the ball is being advanced upfield. I going back to the culprits of where things are, I think my primary one is that Noonan got outcoached. I think that's primarily where it is. And you know what? I think Pat Noonan said as much in the post-game conference that our team was not prepared to play. And that's coach speak for, I failed at my job. And I know a lot of the times they say that because you can't go out there in the press conference and blame the players for not executing. But in this case, this team did not look prepared to play. They did not look prepared to face whatever it was Philadelphia was doing. They did not react well at all to what was going on. And if there was a plan for what last night was supposed to look like in terms of how they were planning to break the press, and look, every team in this league presses. Every single good team in this league presses. I'm sorry, it's not novel to face a team that has a high press. And I get that this high intensity press is more effective in colder weather than it will be when it's a relative humidity of 110% and the country is in the middle of the summer. I get that. But to not be prepared for that, and also to not be able to deploy an effective press going the other direction at all, because our press has been ineffective the entire season so far. That's a coaching failure to not have your team prepared to face a high press in MLS. If you have new players you've brought in, like Engel, the first thing you need to be working on them with is, look, in this league, you are going to get pressed to death because it's the easiest way for teams to play defense in a salary cap league. It's the most effective way. They weren't ready for this. They didn't do anything to fix it. They didn't do anything to try and maintain possession, force Philly to chase the game, chase the ball, wear them out with possession. And so they pressed with impunity, and there was nothing that Pat Noonan deployed in order to fix that. And I know we talked going into the year a little bit about this idea that Pat Noonan is going to have to come up with some game plans now, because the plan can't be find Lucho and let Lucho do magic.
Right.
This was a game where what you were looking for was Pat Noonan to have an answer and have a tactical answer for this team. And as best I could tell, and I'm not a genius at any of this, if one of you saw something that they were doing tactically to try and, other than just beating their head into the sand every time or pounding their head into the wall every time, I didn't see it.
I think there's something to. I'm gonna acknowledge it once right here, but then immediately kind of downplay the importance of it. Okay. There is something to the extent that the wind took away playing the ball over the top in the first half.
Kick it harder.
One of the ways you can beat the press. But part of why that was such a problem is because they chose to go out with a midfield of Brian Anunga and Obina Wobodo. So you're not going to be able to use your central midfielders to advance the ball through the press. Like, you're just not. Like, what are they going to do with it? And you know, I don't want to be too hard on either guy. Like, certainly I don't want to be too hard on Anunga, because we talked about, you know, what we were hoping to see from him, and it was not starting in place of Pavel Buka and being like, you know, like, I think David Gass on your Soccer Wise episode said, you know, they're not going to ask him to, you know, they're not going to ask him to advance the ball.
Yeah, that's why Nashville dropped him, is he couldn't advance the ball. Yeah,
right. And I don't need, like, for me personally, I don't need him to advance the ball. Yeah, but like, I don't know if like anybody told like the coaches that like he would, like, he's not going to advance the ball, and so then you've got some of the ways that you can possibly beat the press just taken out. One, you know, by forces out of your control. Although I will say, you know, Philly, when they went the other direction, scored 2 goals.
Yeah. They didn't have a problem with it.
And like, you know, game state and all that, but whatever. I don't want to make excuses. But then but you intentionally took another mechanism out of your golf bag, you know, to beat the press by starting Wobodo and Anunga together instead of, if you weren't going to start Pavel, you know, you could have started Kubo next to Wobodo.
Yeah.
And then you could have started Baird up top. Like, I think that would have been perfectly serviceable. And, you know, Kubo hasn't been great this year,
No.
or very good, but I think he would have been better in that position to start the game yesterday.
Yeah.
Than Anunga was. That doesn't really explain the defensive issues, which to me were more concerning.
Yeah.
And it's another reason why I think it's coaching, because if guys don't know what to do it without having like a defensive captain on the field, making sure that they know every moment what to do.
Yeah.
It means somehow the message of what they're supposed to be doing is not getting through.
I'll go a step further. It's all one song. It's the defensive issues are exacerbated by the fact that they didn't have the ability last night to force Philly to advance the ball on offense up the entire field. They never got it forward. I think they were 2-1 disadvantage, something like that, on touches in the final third between Philly and them.
The first half, especially, I think the XG in the first half was like 0.08.
Yeah, it was nothing.
And so Philly was like 1.75 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so as a result, Philly, when they would move to offense, they intercepted the ball in dangerous positions. They forced Cincinnati to defend out of shape. They rarely got the ability to set their defensive shape. They were reactive as opposed to proactive because, again, you know, touches on passes were being booted 3 and 4 yards away from players where balls were being intercepted. They didn't win 50-50 balls. The passing was again, and I sound like a broken record on this, the passing was again terrible.
Yeah.
And so, you know, yeah, the defensive issues are bad, but they were playing defense all night. They didn't keep the ball. The possession they had was non-threatening. They rarely got the ball forward. If you look at the heat maps that were posted by MLS Analytic on Blue Sky, it was FC Cincinnati barely got the ball to midfield in this game.
Yeah.
And then they're surrounded on both flanks and on Philly's third by a sea of gold on the heat maps. You look at the passing charts, passes in the final third. Again, it's double, nearly. And all that plays into the fact, and all that plays in together to this idea that they were just, at every phase of the game, they were out-coached and they were outplayed. And the back line could not connect the ball. The midfield, the back of the midfield could not connect to the front of the midfield because, again, you're playing Anunga and you're playing Wobodo, two passing challenged individuals. And because of that, the only way Cincinnati could try to play was out wide, and Philly was shutting them down on the wings and collapsing down immediately, using the sideline as an extra defender, so they couldn't advance the ball up the wings. And so you never even got to a point where you have Evander and Denke in space being dangerous. You didn't see any of Engel running up the field because he couldn't get free because they were clamping down as soon as the ball went out wide. They dared FC Cincinnati to play the ball through the middle. They had no ability to do it.
Yeah, they couldn't.
And on the other side, it seems like Philly started multiple players who would not get into our 11.
Yeah.
And, you know, probably wouldn't get into our team at all. But they know what to do. Like when Quinn Sullivan gets the ball, he immediately kind of has an idea of what he's going to do with it. And he doesn't like blow you away. Right. But he makes a decision and finds a pass. Right. And it happens relatively quickly, you know, and when there's a loose ball, you know, there's just not that moment. There didn't seem to be that moment of hesitation with the Philly players where they stand and they look around and think, whose ball is this? Or like processing that there's a loose ball. Somebody's running to it, you know, all the time. In the first goal, the third goal, back to the third goal. You look at the forward players for Philly, they're all moving the whole time. And it's a very quick sequence of passes.
Yeah.
And they don't do anything. They do something smart, but they don't do anything like technically spectacular there.
Right. Nothing jumps out of like, oh my God, yeah, we got beat by world class.
These are repeatable plays that, as Philly shows, like your average MLS player can do this.
Yeah.
And so I do think that's also like, it also feels like something that comes on the coaching side.
Yeah.
Not a player skill side.
So how much of that though goes to the first or second suspect? I've lost count of them at this point. On this idea that
I'm going to throw out the fitness issue. I don't care about that.
No, I don't care about that either. Yeah, I'm done with that. Like, this is the freshest this team will be. It's right off preseason. If there's fatigue issues with the team, that's a problem with the offseason conditioning program. This team should be fresh.
And I also don't care about this slow start thing. The 22 team, the team they started with was very different from the team they ended with. The 24 team, kind of the same thing, but in reverse, but also like that team just wasn't as good as 23. And as you pointed out, like 23 had a good start.
Yeah,
it did.
Right.
It did.
And I don't think it's like a Pat Noonan start slow. I think their better teams start better than their worst teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where it's like, I think maybe the other culprit is, and I hate this, is, look, these guys are professional athletes. A lot of them are very highly paid. I hate with a passion this idea, well, they just need time to gel. You're millionaires. Figure it out. Like, figure it out. I get that with college kids. I'm not here for millionaires telling me and highly paid players telling me I need more time to learn more about my teammates. Grind film. This should keep you up at night. Having said that, smarter people than me have told me that's an unrealistic expectation to have. And Evander has only been here for 2 weeks, and he's been, and there's the big issue is he's very talented. They're counting on him to be the link in the midfield from the middle to the front attacking third. He's the person that is supposed to be getting the ball to dangerous positions. He's the most creative player that they have on the roster right now, especially with Orshano being on the bench. And again, he's only been here for 2 weeks. And, with regard to the CONCACAF Champions Cup nonsense, I don't buy fatigue being an issue. What probably is also hurting this team is that they're losing days of practice in the air and traveling. So, you're in Honduras. That takes away 2 full days of training getting to Honduras. You play a game, that takes away a day from training. You come back to Cincinnati, it's a recovery day, so there's no training. Then you play a match, so there's no training. Then you have a recovery day, so there's no training. Then you train for 2 days and you're back playing another match. Then you train for 2 days and you're flying to Philly, so there's no training. It's just what they need. And again, this is a byproduct of the way the Lucho Acosta situation worked out, is they need a time machine to go back and put Evander in Florida and give him a couple of weeks of continuous time on the practice field with his teammates to figure out what they do and where they go and how the offense works, and when I do this, you're going to do that, and when you do this, where do you anticipate? How do you see the game then at that point? And they're not going to get that for a while. Possibly not until they get jumped out of the Champions League, which could be in a week and a half. But the longer that goes on, the more that the problems are going to exist in terms of they just don't have days to work on stuff. That's not a sexy answer. And it's really annoying because it's like the last thing anyone wants to hear about what fixes things is time. I don't want that. I want it now. But it may well be the case that just there hasn't been enough time for the big players on this team to know what they're doing. And, spoiler alert, Luka hasn't been training a ton either. So we're just about to start the clock over again as soon as he gets out onto the field.
Yeah. I hear you, and I had the same thought with less the fatigue, more the lack of having, the training schedule that they like to have, and with guys getting late into training and other guys not participating in training. That said, and they're not in Champions League, but Dallas has 5 goals and 4 points across 2 games, and Lucho joined them pretty late too.
Sure.
And
they also haven't taken a trip. They didn't take a trip to Honduras.
Sure, but he like he is pretty good at playing with the attackers around him over there.
For what it's worth, Evander has a goal in this game.
Yeah, he does.
Least we forget.
He does.
He has a meaningless goal in this game.
Wow. Okay, but you can't tell me that he's not up to speed, and then also just like disregard the fact that he scored a goal.
Game state, as Grayson said.
I'm not like saying that. I'm not saying that this is Evander's fault or that Evander hasn't even been good. I am saying that I don't know that other teams have these issues.
Well, I looked, and like you look at like the CONCACAF Champions Cup schedule, and who else has had to go and do this kind of travel like we did? Our friends down in South Florida, they drew Sporting KC. They drew like a normal ass away day for their version of CONCACAF Champions Cup. The Crew haven't even started in Champions Cup.
But the Crew lost Cucho and scored 4 goals their first game.
We've already established Wilfred Nancy as the Antichrist. Like that's part of the lore in the show right now.
Yeah, I mean that's fine. I guess
if you want the Western Conference equivalent of us, the Seattle Sounders, a very trendy pick for Shield contenders this year, played 2 games in Guatemala. They have lost both of their league games. They are currently in 25th place in the league. And as I said, they are a team that is chock full of USMNT B team stars, and a team that on paper should run this league without hesitation. And 2 wins against the Guatemalan team has them floundering a bit in the league right now. I should say a loss and a draw. Not 2 losses, loss and a draw.
So that's where I'm at. I am at that the 2 biggest factors confounding this team right now is, one, I don't think this team looks well coached right now. And I don't know whether that's a factor of, and the team doesn't look well coached, and I don't think they've had enough time to train. They brought pieces in too late. They're missing pieces. I don't know whether that's all one song or all part of the same thing, that like they look poorly coached because they just haven't had a lot of time to sit and drill on tactics. Philadelphia had a full week to prepare for this game. The FC functionally had 2 to prepare for this game.
Not for nothing as well. It's in the ballpark of what you guys are talking about here. There are 5 new faces on this team in this game. Flores, Angle, Evander, Anunga, Denke. Throw in there, Kubo missed half of preseason. Hadebi joins halfway through last year. It's quite a bit of roster turnover from last year to this year. Again, mixing a little what's going on with the preseason and stuff like that. Like, that's dramatic.
Sure. But
I'm not saying it's the reason why they got beat 4-1, but
we kind of had this was like kind of a line last year as well. Because there was like a lot of roster turnover. There was a decent amount of roster turnover from 22 to 23.
They weren't playing in Champions League then.
Yeah, but they weren't making excuses because they were doing well.
Yeah.
They weren't like, oh, this is impossible to win games because there's too many new players.
Right.
So they were just good. And so they were winning. I think it's too early to label the team good or bad. I know how I feel about the players on the roster. I still feel very, very high on this group of players. I think that they're good. I think they're a good team.
Yeah.
I think they're better than Philadelphia. But they do have to show it.
Yeah.
If
They did beat Red Bull a week ago.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And they looked. We
Okay.
all sat here and said the defense looked pretty damn good in that game.
And I wanted to bring up the Red Bull in particular because
they just tattooed somebody yesterday, didn't they?
they whooped up on Nashville. It was not particularly close in that one. They beat them 2-0. But I wanted to bring up Red Bull specifically as one, we beat a good team, I think, and then two, a pressing team. Like this team survived whatever Red Bull was throwing at them. Now, first game of the season for Red Bull as well, so maybe they're disjointed, and feel free to apply all of the above excuses to Red Bull last week. That's fine too. But it's not as if, oh my God, pressing teams kill this team. I mean, they handled the Godfathers
can kill
of
this
pressing.
team though, like
100%.
because like Red Bull smoked them at their place last year.
Yes,
And
there
our
was that
place too, for that matter.
Yeah, and there was that famous St. Louis game. Like
Yeah.
they do when they let the game get out of hand. It's usually against a heavy pressing
yeah.
team.
I don't think I would have been as frustrated if it had been just a normal ass loss. They got beat, like thoroughly beat. And this Philly team should be struggling too. New coach, new regime. They coming out of the gate hotter than a firecracker. And
they've got new players. They lost starters.
Yeah, they lost starters. They're trying to get a 15-year-old regular minutes.
They lost Carranza. They lost Elliott.
Yeah. And so as a result, it's
on.
like they got it figured out. And I need Pat Noonan to get this figured out. I need him to show that he can do it without Lucho. And it's early. Jury's still out, I think, as to whether or not the secret sauce was Lucho or this. For better or worse this year, this is going to be Brady and Belichick.
Yeah.
Because, admittedly, to a much, much lesser extent.
No, exact same stakes, exact same level.
Well, I mean, it's that all of Noonan's tenure and all of Noonan's success overlaps with Lucho. He has not coached a professional match as a head coach without Lucho Acosta on his roster.
Until this year.
And so now there will be a question answered. And so far, I think Dallas, what's Dallas at? One win, one tie. Dallas is on 4 points. FC Cincinnati is on 3. And I don't expect that Dallas is going to be better than Cincinnati this year. But Noonan has to show what he is capable of and what he can do without being able to rely or fall back on Lucho Acosta. And the results against Red Bull were effective. They won a rock fight versus that team. They didn't look pretty doing it. They didn't generate a ton of chances. And then in this game, they also didn't generate a ton of chances. So
2 shots on target. By the way.
Yeah. I think, I'm still optimistic for the season.
Same.
But we could talk about like what went wrong and whatever as much as we want. It doesn't really matter. What I want to see is that the people in charge identify what is wrong and come up with solutions for it, and time will tell.
Yeah.
If that happens. Because and if it happens, if it doesn't happen, then it's like, well, why doesn't that happen? Is it because you don't have the right players? Is it because you don't have the right ideas? Or is it because the solution is just simply unknowable?
All right.
Right.
We don't know. We've done everything right and nothing works. I wish I had more of that ability to bust out the cope right now, because the team otherwise looked not great, did not generate enough chances, but there is a degree of like the second goal was initially called offside. It is a sort of like freak accident play with the ball pinging off of Anunga's leg. He makes a deliberate play on it, which is why it is not an offside play.
Okay,
but
and the player was he was onside the last time a Philly player touched the ball.
Is that it? Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter with whether Anunga played a deliberate play or not.
And then the other one is on the third goal, of course, it's chaos in the box where a defender has gone out past the goal, runs back in onto the field and scores the goal. It's pretty easy to lose your man when he runs off the field for what it's worth. So I think there's some craziness as well that you could throw in there.
How are you able to make such a, like, how is that pass available when there's like 5 guys in the box?
Totally agreed. Guys gave up on the play there. Like their spirit is like broken at that point in the game, which is very frustrating because I can kind of see maybe Noonan, maybe in the coaching staff's argument is, okay, first goal, they got us. Yeah, fair play. Good play. They got us. Second one, kind of a freak accident, but overall, we think we ended the half okay, no reason to change things. We can bounce back. That third goal, and we're done. And that's the end of the game.
Game was over at the second goal. Like that first half, they showed so little fight and so little ability to advance the ball forward. I was like, they ain't scoring 2 goals in this game.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And it's weird also with this team how easy that is to spot. And it has been for under most of Pat Noonan's tenure. For the most part, you can tell within the first 20 minutes if this team's in it to play tonight. And there's no like bright line, like, oh, here is your sign that they're not in for it tonight. But there's just a vibe around this team when they have games like this where it's like, they ain't coming back.
Is it strategic load management?
I don't know.
Is it that they're told, hey, we're going 75% tonight?
It's weird how there's certain matches where they feel dangerous and other matches where they don't feel dangerous at all. Like in that Red Bulls match, they felt a little dangerous. Like they were doing things where it was like, okay, they're a little frisky tonight. Yeah. That game last night didn't feel dangerous for a minute of that game.
Yeah.
They played games like this last year where it was like that Red Bulls game we all went to in New York. Like they didn't feel dangerous for more than like a minute of that game. Or the playoff eventually that knocked them out against NYCFC didn't feel dangerous that entire game. They go stretches, like long stretches of games where it's like, I don't think this team's ever going to score again. And
yeah, it's funny because I used to blame that on Lucho. That like Lucha's body language would carry the sort of spirit of the team. That's not an excuse this year.
No. So. You know what? It's weird. Grayson, you brought this up earlier, and that's that Philly, the entire game looked energetic. People were moving. People were making quick decisions. Even last year, like it's a hallmark of these Pat Noonan coach teams. This team moves so damn slowly. Like there is rarely instinctual play on this team.
Well, maybe Pat needs to learn the word game model and philosophy.
I don't know.
Or we just need some more Elvis Powell in our life.
Yeah.
Because Elvis Powell is a pure speed, pure instinct player.
But you know what? There needs to be a little more of that. There needs to be a little like, you know how damn frustrating it is when you watch this team? And it didn't happen as much last night because they just weren't in the attacking third. But when a guy just sort of stands there looking to pick a pass out, do something quickly. Like the longer you stand, the easier you are to defend and the less likelihood there is that a defender is going to be caught out of position. You know what catches people out of position? Quick touches and quick passes. And this team I'm hoping when Evander gets a little more integrated into things and when Luka gets back, because he seems to be a quick thinker, that maybe things start moving more quickly, but damn it, just do something. Like somebody run somewhere, somebody create some chaos, and Alvis in that game last week, yeah, he goes Leroy Jenkins right there, but it's chaos. It's energy. It's doing something that they're not prepared for. And that's kind of how goals get scored in this league.
I think in any field, there's like, you develop like kind of like tendencies where it's like, okay, well, rather than like struggle with a problem, I kind of have like a typical way that I resolve this. Yeah. And I'm just going to like default to that. Maybe that, yeah. And like, you know, maybe that ends up being the choice, or like maybe I come up with something more creative. But like, you know, if you look at like Aaron Sorkin TV shows, right? Yeah. People do those super cuts where it's like just the same people saying the same lines like across all of everything that he's written.
While
he's
talking,
got like
while walking.
Like, yeah, he's got those little like pat phrases that he just throws into stuff. It's like his go-to filler, right?
Yeah. Walt Disney Animation would have the same like core dance animation, but they needed like some little woodland creatures dancing. It's using like 4 or 5 of their movies. Like, we're not reinventing the wheel here.
And, you know, and it's like, you know, hopefully you come up with something more creative most of the time. But sometimes it's just like, I got to like move on. Like I got to put something here so I don't like sit here with like writer's block or whatever. A team like Philly that has like a very clear identity, the players kind of understand like these are like my instinctual moves.
Right.
Because this is how we play. How does this is more of a rhetorical question, but does FC Cincinnati have a how we play identity to the extent where you would say, okay, well, this is like the players on the team are kind of going to repeat these kinds of things so that they're not just standing around as like a default, you know?
Yeah.
Like Lucho would be like, yeah, he's got a couple of like, he's like a couple of like his favorite moves. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the little, you know, and you could, to the point where if he had the ball in a certain position, you could kind of predict what he was going to do there. But I don't know that we've ever had that at a team level.
Yeah. I mean,
the way some other teams do.
We did. It was kick the ball to Lucho when in doubt.
Right.
Yeah. gonna need to come up with a couple of plays, which is apparently the antithesis of Noonan's coaching style. So something to think about. You know, I don't need a point guard running up the field yelling play 3 or something, but I need some patterns.
It feels like with the way like good teams that have that play that way go is it's like they have like styles, and then during the game, the players might come up with something creative to like switch it up here. Right.
Right.
Or to like run at it in a different angle to be a little unpredictable. But sometimes it feels like every guy who gets the ball has to like kind of figure out on the fly what he wants, like what the offense is supposed to be doing.
Which maybe works if you recruit and coach up smart enough players, right? So then the opponent has no idea what you're doing either.
Yeah. That's a great point, though. It's like, what is the FC Cincinnati identity? Like, and that's a question they're going to have to answer this year. What is our identity as a team? You know, it's. I
think it's more how we defend is our identity, but even how we attack. But we need to attack.
But like that's fine. But like the 2022 team and the 2023 team, the identity was on defense there too. But the defense was what generated offense because this team liked to break.
And 2023 they definitely had like a transition.
Yeah.
Identity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Brandon Vasquez streaking towards goal. Lucho, you know, finding the outlet pass, springing the offense into the attacking third.
Yeah. Barrial Lucho playing out, like doing some interplay out wide. And then,
and then we got away from that last year. We barely had any of that counterattack, fast break style of soccer. And the team that was kind of last year too, is that the team really didn't have an identity. Like, what was this team? They had injury issues. They had availability issues, you know, signing issues, but they never really formed like, what is FC Cincinnati? And the answer ended up just being kind of disappointing at the end of the day. And so now it's like, what's this? What is the team? Yeah. What is this team's identity going to be this year? What is it that they do well? What is it that they do good? And, You would think it's going to revolve around, getting the ball to Kevin Denke in dangerous positions, but they haven't really been great at doing that this year so far.
We'll see.
Yeah,
those will be the questions that need answered this week. A diverse set of opponents. Should we move on over to part 2 where we talk about one of those opponents? Let's move over to Tigres on Tuesday. Before we get on over to the next part of the episode, I do want to tell you about our friends over at Cincy Shirts. That is right. New year, new you. Go pick up some new threads over at Cincy Shirts. They got what you're looking for. They got Cincinnati sports. They got Cincinnati culture, Cincinnati geography, Cincinnati businesses. Everything you're looking for, they got it over there at cincyshirts.com. Hey, when you're there, use the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps. They knock 10% off your entire order for using that one. And if I don't mind dropping this one, we sell merch through Cincy Shirts. That's right. You want a Post shirt, a Cincy shirt from Cincy Shirts? Check them out. It is good stuff there. We will have new designs for the new year, but they're not there yet. So this might be your last chance to collect some of these designs. You want an Opie shirt, one of the 12. They got some good stuff there. Hey, they're not just online. They're in person as well. Go check them out in Loveland and in Northern Kentucky. They've got 2 fantastic locations. They will print on demand. You can work with them, come up with maybe a little goofy idea. They'll work with you, I promise. And again, the promo code, ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps. They knock 10% off your order. That works on Post merch as well. Want to support us twice? Absolutely, you can do that. So huge thank you again to our friends over at Cincy Shirts, and a huge thank you to you, listener, for using that code. All right, we are back, and there is a CONCACAF Champions League match. Just to be clear, we know it's CONCACAF Champions Cup. We reject the cup. It is forever CCL to us. Let you inside the bit here. It is forever CCL as the Champions League. It's easier to understand that way, folks.
Yeah. CCC is just we're getting too close to the Soviet Union there.
Yeah, we don't need that. The CCC playoff. We've got Tigres, one of the bigger clubs over in Mexico, currently sitting in 3rd in the Liga MX table for the Clausura. Or at least that's what FOTMob is telling me. I know they're in the Apertura, but it's telling me the wrong thing here. Very exciting. They're a good team. They've got Gignac still on their team, 39 years old, their club legend on this team. This is the team that we were looking at just before recording. Just dropped a casual $7.5 million on a center back. Just one of those things that you do. Really can't or shouldn't do in MLS.
Yeah. The joys of the designated player model. Like, you can't use one of your 3 magic bullets on a center back. It just doesn't work out well for you.
Yeah, or if you have done that, it's a 22-year-old or 21-year-old that you've brought in, and maybe you're not going to trust him on that one. This is, of course, the first matchup between FC Cincinnati and Tigres. That would be a little more shocking, but since the advent of the Leagues Cup, I suppose there was more of a chance we could have played them. TBD on the injury status of all of the above: Valenzuela, Orishano, Miazga, and Haglund. Although Haglund has been making the bench.
He did not make the bench. He didn't make the bench against Philly.
Okay.
Prior to Philly, we were informed, I don't want to say lied to because that feels like too strong a word, but we were informed that Orishano was going to be available for selection on Saturday. He was not in the 18 either. So
available for selection, not selected.
Not selected.
That's how to get you.
Isn't everybody available for selection under that standard and criteria?
I think so.
I mean, you can put Miazga out there on crutches. He's certainly available.
Right. Yeah. You may not want to do it.
Right.
But,
He's not on crutches. Don't worry, folks.
No. To answer the question that we had asked on the last episode, we were lied to. The post Damon Gumbert was correct. Originally, Miazga was supposed to be ahead of Haglund on the return.
That makes
from
no
injury.
damn sense.
I know, that's what they said like a month ago.
Yeah, we should have been more we should have been more critical about when that was said a month ago then, because that absolutely makes no sense that a guy on a broken leg would be on a faster timetable than a dude recovering from 2 ligament tears.
So so maybe we see Haglund in this game, maybe we see Orishano in this game. I would not bet on it, but
No.
I don't know. Maybe they don't travel to Philly because they're resting them for Tuesday. I don't know. Grayson, what are the vibes going into this one? How are we feeling about this matchup, this two-legged affair here?
I mean, I feel like it's I feel like it's a no pressure situation. Like I don't think anybody goes into this like expecting right to win. I mean, I doubt we go into the series as the favorites. I think they have the capability, they have the quality if they play well to do it. So, I think that I am hoping for a good game. If they lose close like they did against Monterey last year, I don't think I'm really going to draw many conclusions from it. If they get smoked, I don't know. There may be a measured response in the fan base to that, but I mean, I think the vibes really coming off of 4-1 loss. I feel like the vibes aren't bad.
Yeah. Thankfully it's too early to panic. If this situation happens in like, I don't know, a month or two from now, and this is maybe a semifinal matchup, I'd be terrified and I'd be really, really worried about everything.
Also, I think a lot of people in the fan base don't really care about this competition, and they're not going to be mad if they don't get charged another round.
Why? A question for you then, Chief. Why don't we, the royal we here, why don't we care about this competition more? Shouldn't this matter way more than the league?
No, because all the rest, there's no competition for MLS in this tournament outside of Mexico. Like, it's a joke that we have to go to Honduras and play that match. That team is non-competitive with MLS and Liga MX. It's quite literally a waste of a training day and a waste of a 3,000-mile flight. Like, it's a joke that we're including those leagues in this tournament. They're not even remotely on the same level as MLS or Mexico. I understand they're trying to replicate like Champions League elsewhere, but in other places, Europe, there are multiple leagues that are on about the same footing with one another, where it's interesting to see the top team from Germany play the top team from France, play the top team from Italy, play the top team from England. That's interesting. It is in no way interesting to watch one of the top teams from MLS play the best team in Honduras, because the best team in Honduras gets smoked. The best team in Costa Rica gets smoked. The best team in El Salvador gets smoked. It's dull until you get to the Liga MX MLS matchups. And there, number one, we have Leagues Cup already. Now, that's another version of this that I would say is probably a better version of this. And two, within that, there's another pecking order issue, and that's that you're going up against teams that are not handicapped by roster restrictions and salary caps. This would be more interesting if Liga MX and MLS were governed under the same rules for roster, but it's not. So the competition to me is just not interesting because it's not measuring an even thing. There's no even playing field between anyone on any level of this. And at the end of the day, I get that these are historic clubs in Mexico. I don't give a shit about beating Tigres. I don't. Like, that doesn't move the needle for me. Like, it's not some big accomplishment because I didn't grow up watching Liga MX. hell, I didn't even start watching, a lot of Mexican soccer until very recently. Like, I've been watching Premier League clubs for the better part of 20 years. Like, these guys, until we did our Better Know Liga MX segment a couple years ago when Leagues Cup started, I couldn't name more than 3 or 4 teams in Mexico. Legitimately.
Does it change your attitude if you knew that Motagua knocked out Pachuca in the Champions League in 2023?
I don't care.
Okay.
I don't.
I had to try.
I think that Leagues Cup does blunt this tournament quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because, I just expect that the version of FC Cincinnati that plays in Leagues Cup is going to be a better representation of the team's quality than the version of FC Cincinnati that goes into the game Tuesday.
Yeah, just based on the timing of the competitions.
For reasons we've discussed.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, well, yeah, we could go in and lose to Tigres across the next 2 weeks, but then you just get another chance in the summer against teams that are just as good. Like, the worst team that we played just beat Tigres.
Right. might have gotten their coach fired, which we'll touch on here in a moment.
All right. I'm going to give another answer to this question too. And Kevin, you can make the decision whether or not this makes this final version of the podcast.
Ooh, I've got the mute button ready.
All right. The other reason nobody cares about this tournament in the United States is that all of the teams that we're play in countries that are dangerous to visit for the most part, that most people don't want to take a trip to, or that if they decide they want to take a trip to, they'd better be equipped with a local, someone, who speaks Spanish, and really be on their P's and Q's. Like, we played at Cavalier last year. Everyone we talked to, the 3 of us, when we were joking about, wouldn't it be funny to go to the first ever, they're like, do not go to Kingston. Flat out. Honduras, it's on the State Department watch list, that a do not travel advisory. Monterrey is a nice city from what I've been told and what I've read. And I do know people that have gone to Monterrey, but for the most part, most places in Mexico are just not safe to visit. And most people don't want to take a trip there. So I think that the allure of an international cup competition would be going to see your team play away somewhere that isn't part of your league, that isn't a usual away day, doing something different, like getting on the train if you're in Europe and saying, yeah, I am going to go down to Brussels, or I'm going to go down to, to Paris, or I'm going to go to, Venice or wherever, or, Napoli, and go watch my team play. Of all the places that you can go in CONCACAF Champions Cup, how many of those places are on the thumbs up list from the State Department of, yeah, good place to go. Go have yourself a good time with this. And I think that really does blunt the appeal of a tournament like this. That if it were geopolitically different, I think more people would be into yeah, I'll take a trip to go see FC Cincinnati play this away day. Or, yeah, that sounds interesting to go to this country and experience this culture and experience this thing that I don't usually go to, or see this stadium that I don't usually see. But what you see is they're shooting fireworks off outside. There's an SUV parked right behind the goal, and there's razor wire around the inside of the stadium. And I don't know, is that politically incorrect? Maybe a little, but I think that has to factor somewhere in here, right?
At the very least, it's people's perceptions, right? That it hurts. It hurts the perception of it. I think, on a similar but different note, the way that the TV broadcast partners treat the tournament here in the States also just screams second-class competition. And people can get mad about the Apple deal all you want. Try following a team in the Champions League here. It's tough. You're getting bumped. There was a team last week got bumped for some other basketball competition, and the game was not available on the website or on the app. There was just no way to watch the game. The game just disappeared. Sorry.
There was some sad announcer just talking to himself to no one
for 15 minutes at a time, and then 15 minutes off, and then 15 minutes back on. It was very weird.
So the presentation of Leagues Cup it's going to be just better than the presentation of this Champions Cup. To revisit the portion that's probably going to get cut. I think it's fair to say a couple of things. One is, like, even if you were inclined to travel for one of these games, it's tougher to travel to Tegucigalpa on a Wednesday.
Yes.
Right. Or even Monterey on a Tuesday.
Right.
Depending on what your work and job situation is, because we don't have direct flights to any of these places.
No.
Right. But then on the other hand, and if you want to talk about like the State Department like travel rating, I'm pretty sure that if you ever like look up any country, the message from the State Department is don't go there. Like if you look up like London, England on like the State Department's website, they're like, it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous. It's this is a high alert travel destination for Americans and stuff. Like, they don't want you going anywhere.
Yeah, please don't leave.
Like, most of these places you could, if you had the time and the money and the inclination, you could go, like, especially Monterey. You know,
Monterey, Mexico City, would be fine.
Yeah. I have a buddy who lives in California, and he was in San Diego for a few years. He would regularly just hop the train and go to see Club Tijuana, which is, it's a very short ride if you're in San Diego. And so I've done some travel to places that I think people would advise you not to go to. And I just think I think that's overblown. I mean, part of it is it more than anything, it's that Americans broadly don't travel outside of the US.
Yeah.
And even when they do, it's, they'll go to like a all-inclusive or something.
Yeah. Something like 60% of Americans don't have a passport. I think that's the statistic. I think that is not a factor at all. I guess my conclusion, other than like suggesting that people maybe be a little bit more open-minded with their travel as a life decision. I think that's not a factor at all in the popularity of this tournament. But I do think that I agree with basically everything else that's been said about like how it's administered, how it's presented in the US, when it falls in the season, it being essentially redundant when it comes to Leagues Cup, which is just a better version of a MLS versus Liga MX competition, which is the only portion of this tournament that also matters. So, yeah. Right. Yeah, it's like a mark of shame if you lose to a team that's not from Mexico as an MLS team.
Even if you do, that team is going to lose the next game.
Right, of course.
Right? So like that loss won't matter. Like if Colorado loses to Alajuelense, well, yeah, like Colorado's not going to win Champions Cup. Well, they weren't going to win Champions Cup anyway. And I know they didn't play each other. We're just picking two teams. But like the Costa Rican team is going to lose the next round. So it's not, it doesn't mean anything even when these upsets happen.
You'd need the Costa Rican teams like regularly winning or making the final, I feel like.
Certainly, yeah.
Or spending enough that you could see it happening.
Yeah.
Right. You need a couple of teams, or if like MLS became a fully US league and Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver joined the Canadian League, and there were a couple of big Costa Rican teams that played on the same level. So you have like now 4 countries who don't usually play each other in this competition. And any one of these could be competitive. Like that was a more interesting version of the tournament. We don't have that.
Right.
Yeah, that's just not the one we have. Yeah.
Like what you're looking for is you're looking for like one of these other Central American leagues to have an Ajax where you're not part of the traditional power leagues, but there's this one team where, hey, they can give you a run a little bit if things go their way on it, or like a Galatasaray or something like that, where it's like they can play with the big boys a little bit.
Yeah. FIFA had talked about at one point, and I don't know where we are with this, of like creating a Caribbean league rather than asking all of these individual nations to create their own domestic leagues. I think if you maybe did something like that, you might be able to create a couple of half decent teams to pop up out of that, but it would take a lot of funding from CONCACAF and FIFA to prop it up for a little bit.
Yeah,
but
and
there's a lot of like dual nats that could come back, and
their federations hate that. Like their federations want, like Costa Rica wants their team, their guys playing. They don't want them playing in Costa Rica. They want them playing. They want their top talent elsewhere. So that hurts the domestic product as well.
So Tigres, should be said, fired their manager the evening we are recording this. Very exciting. From what I can tell on the internets here, it was just a lost the locker room situation that their manager basically just lost the respect of the players and let them go. Yeah. So this is a Google Translate of the statement from Tigres. It was very funny. Today is a historic day for this institution as Guido Pizarro has decided to retire as a player from Club Tigres. Oh, okay. Player retires. Likewise, due to his career leadership and preparation, the board has made the decision to name him as the new coach of our team.
Player manager.
Then it goes on to list his accomplishments, wore the captain's badge of the 2019 Clausura. Welcome Guido to the position of technical director of the team you love. We are sure that your Tigre profile and determination that characterized you on the field for 16 years will be transferred to your career as a coach. Player turned manager 3 hours ago.
I'm annoyed that we were deprived of a player manager.
I know. When's the last time Rooney was a player manager for Derby, right?
I think so. I think Preki was a player manager in MLS.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that.
I'm 90% certain Jaap Stam thought he could be a player manager for FC Cincinnati.
Allegedly, he ran training sessions that way.
Yeah.
Someone did this for Manchester United. Didn't Giggs take over as like caretaker manager for a couple of games, technically as player manager? I think that happened. So damn, that'll be fun. So we got Tigres with the new manager bounce. Let's just go ahead and bake that in. Damn. I don't know what to feel about this one. I'm dumb and think that we've got a decent chance of winning. This is not the same Tigres team that has just been tearing things up. They beat Necaxa or Nahaka. I always mess this one up. Anyway, they beat them yesterday 2-1, but they lost to Juarez. They lost to Leon recently, so they haven't had the easiest opportunity. They also earlier in CONCACAF Champions League, they lost to Real Esteli, who is in the Nicaraguan league. So they beat them 1-0 earlier. Tigres then beat them 3-0 in Mexico. So
yeah,
things to think about.
Many people say
they're not the, I don't know. They're not some unconquerable machine heading to TQL Stadium.
Ryan Giggs was player coach. Preki does not appear to have been.
Oh, damn. I'm just glad I got one.
It's interesting coming off the heels of getting the break speed off you on the weekend. What's the team's response? Like, they're getting the new manager bounce. Cool. But this should be put your boots on and let's show some pride game from FC Cincinnati. You would hope that everyone that was on the field on Saturday comes back on Tuesday at home with a renewed sense of we have something to show. This is not who we are, and this is not the team that we want to be this year.
Yeah.
And if they've got that, if they're, if the give a damn meter's running hot enough, you would think that they'd be game for it in this. The interesting part of this that I think is just crazy is we were looking at the rosters before taping, and we said this before the tournament started. Kevin Denke is going to be the best player on the field, and he's playing for FC Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He might be one of the best players in this tournament, not named Leo Messi. Evander is possibly going to be the second best player on the field between these two teams. So, yeah, I think that, top to bottom, Tigres probably has a better roster than FC Cincinnati. But in terms of the players who could make a difference, the two best players are playing for the FC, and that has to at least get, in my mind, give them a even money shot of taking at least a point or a draw out of this. And you win this, okay,
yeah,
Game on.
Yeah.
So I think that the number one thing I want to see from this team, what I want to see in this game, is I want to see that they have an attacking plan and they have a plan to do something to deal with pressure, because Tigres is going to pressure them. That's just, it would be malpractice for whoever the new coach is to not watch the film from Saturday and be like, we are going to get in their grill.
Yeah.
From the first minute. I want to see that Noonan's got something to do about that. I want to see that he's got an answer for that. I assume that part of the answer will be Pavel Buka starting, which will hopefully help things. It would not surprise me to see Corey Baird get the start in the second attacking.
Corey Baird, yes.
Given how ineffective Yuya Kubo has been thus far, it wouldn't surprise me to see Luca Orishano at least off the bench and available in this match to come in for Baird as the replacement later on. I want to see some fight. I want to see him go out there, and I want to see him, at least take it to him. I will be very, very disappointed if this ends up being a 0-0 draw or they don't show some attacking teeth on this, because there's just too much damn money on the roster invested into the attack for them not to be generating chances the way they weren't against Philly.
So here's a question for you. I think I agree with you that they should start a forward other than Yuya Kubo in this game. Assuming both are available, would you go Corey Baird, who has looked at least, active, this year? Or do you go Luca Orishano? Because one, it feels like a stupid question, right? Except for like the context of everything.
Right.
I think that the problem with going Orishano is that it will be a lot harder to pick his minutes if he's starting. I think I would rather have Luca Orishano coming on in relief of Corey Baird, and then you can know exactly how many minutes he's going to play then at that point, and you don't have to worry about something stupid happening along the way. The other thing I think we didn't mention it in the first part of the episode because it really wasn't relevant to anything, but off the injured list as well and available selection was Sergio Santos for the first time. All season.
Mm-hmm.
So it does appear that they have Santos available for selection as well, which means that if you start Baird, you replace him with Luca. If you're going to give Luca 30 minutes of run, you can replace him with Baird in the 60th minute, and you still have Sergio Santos available if you need to bring more firepower on, if you want to sub off Kevin Denke at some point to change things up. I don't know why you would do that, but there you go.
You also have Kubo if you want to, I think a possible move is taking off Obi and putting Kubo in, right?
Yeah. I think that that's a possibility. I think that taking off Yedlin and putting on Kubo, or taking off Engel and putting on Kubo, there are things to me make more sense with Kubo coming off the bench right now, given his form and the ability that he has to spell people. So if it's me, I'm starting Corey Baird. Am I crazy for thinking we should start Evan in this game?
I think you are.
I think you are, but I like where your head's at.
Roman did not. I mean, he got hung out to dry a little bit by his defense on most of these goals. Not a game he's going to want to remember in terms of distribution, in terms of starting the... Because, I mean, the first step to breaking the press a lot of the time is the ball from the goalkeeper. He did not look sharp in this game with his distribution. And I thought it had looked better against the Red Bulls when we played them. Yeah. But I thought his distribution was poor in this game. And I don't know. It's a thought.
Well, I'll tell you, they're not going to be starting Evan.
I know they're not going to do it. I know. That's why I was crazy. Apparently, I'm crazy.
You are crazy. But he'll look good in the Leagues Cup. We'll see how. We'll see how much they take these games seriously. The back line is unchanged, correct? It's going to be Flores, Robinson, right, Hadebe until personnel changes. I think you do see Orishano sub in late in this game. I think he gets a half against Toronto, and then you look at starting him in Mexico. If I were to guess how he is progressed back in.
I agree with that.
I guess we got to make some predictions here, gentlemen. Well, first prediction, are the two of you going to this game?
Yeah, I didn't opt out. I screwed that up. So my credit card got charged the minute the full-time whistle hit on Wednesday this past week.
I expect I will.
I'm TBD. We'll see what happens.
Right.
Let's predict this game. Chief, what do you got for us?
1-1.
1-1 feels like a good result. I should just point out the two things with the scores. I'm glad I give you the score, and then I give you a whole bunch of things to think about. I'll let you change your answer after you hear this. One, away goals rule is in effect here. So
yeah, I know.
Holding them to nothing would be ideal. The other thing is hosting priority for the final. So the final is 2 legs, but whoever gets there gets to choose whether they host the first game or the second game based on a sort of imaginary table of the teams that eventually reach the final, which means teams have an incentive to run up the score. So your goal differential versus your other opponent in the final will determine the hosting priority. Something to think about. So if you think Tigres is the better team, counting from this point on, it didn't count for the last round, counting from this point on, they've got no reason to hold things back.
Yeah,
I
said what I said.
Stick with 1-1. Okay, good.
I said what I said.
I did not want to give you a bunch of information.
I don't think we're going to score more than 1. So I don't know that we're going to run the score up. If we do, that'd be awesome. But vibes haven't been that way for the last 3 games.
Yeah.
I just want to point one quick thing out, and that'll give my prediction.
Please.
In their last 6 games in all competition, Tigres has 3 red cards.
Start Matt Miazga. Heard.
Yeah, they've gotten red cards in 3 of their last 6 games.
Who is the best trash talker on this team?
Apparently Evan, as we've learned.
So I don't know.
Ball don't lie.
I'll go 3-1 to us.
Oh,
whoa!
That would be seismic.
We're gonna see a response.
Oh.
But I don't think we'll be able to keep them off the score sheet.
That's fair. I think we get a 1-0 victory. I think we can pull it off. I think we get a Golazo free kick from someone, and I think the defense holds strong here.
Adrian Brody just won Best Actor.
Hey, did we call that one?
I think we did.
Grayson just we're picking Adrian Brody.
Grayson kind of sort of gave himself a veto unless you and I combined our dumbness to overpower him.
I don't remember what we picked for everything.
Good.
Anyway.
Well, there you have it, folks. There's the predictions. The game is at 6:30 p.m. I know there's some question about that. It may or may not be broadcast on the foxsports.com website. Definitely don't do this. This is very unethical, so don't do this. Do not, if you're unable to attend, watch the game in incognito mode so that you get a 1 hour preview of FS2, and then definitely don't close out your browser and open up a new incognito tab for the second half. That's really unethical, so don't do that.
Yeah, that would be terrible if you did that.
Yeah.
Many people would, they'd hate that. This one simple trick they don't want you to know about.
And with that, Chief.
Yes.
I'm looking at the MLS table, and up at the very top of the Eastern Conference is the Philadelphia Union. Right behind them, though, some cuccio-less motherfuckers.
Thought we were being better about cursing.
Maybe
Fuck
you
the
guys
crew.
are. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast. It is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com or just click a link in the description to check out some of our written work. It also has links to our social media accounts across all sorts of different platforms, including YouTube, where we are trying to do more and more video content. Please, dare I say it, like and subscribe and leave a comment. But no, that would be really, really helpful. I also want to give a thank you to Jim Trace and the Makers. They're a local Cincinnati band who provided all of the music for this episode. We love having them on board. You can check them out. Again, link in the description of this episode to find out where they might be playing shows next or where you can listen to more of their music. Also want to give a massive, massive thank you to the awesome and very attractive patrons over on Patreon. It is a voluntary subscription that people take out with no real promise of anything extra that keep this show afloat. And we are so, so thankful to those of you that have decided to take that commitment. If you do like the show, or at least just want to engage with other people who have listened to the show and want to talk about FC Cincinnati, MLS, soccer, or really anything else, you can go on over to Discord. Again, link in the description. Lots of links in the description where you can find a link to the Discord. That's where we are keeping the conversation going 24/7. It feels like it's a really fun group of people in there just talking about FC Cincinnati. And like I said, just about everything else. And finally, I'll say it. If you liked this episode, and given the fact that you've made it all the way to the end, I have to assume you either like it or for some reason cannot reach the stop button. Please share this episode with a friend or family member or someone who likes FC Cincinnati. The best way for us to grow is from a personal recommendation from somebody who likes it. And if that's you, please tell other people. And if you don't have any friends, feel free to give us a review on whatever your podcast platform of choice is. We'll take anything we can get. But again, a huge, huge thank you to everybody for listening to this show. I am blown away that anybody listens to this. So again, I well and truly mean this. Thank you so much for listening.